All right. Well, I do want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and we'll keep this at a tight 30 today, and we'll just admit people as they come in. But welcome to our latest webinar, Clean Your House, where we will be discussing practical steps to take before launching a set of project management tools. Now that we're all here, I can start off by giving a shameless plug for you to read the companion article to this webinar, published this month in the illustrious American Bar Association Law Practice Today magazine. If anybody does want the link, just text or email me, and I will be sure that you get it. It's the question that project teams always dread, and it usually pings into your inbox at like 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, just as you're about to shut your computer down. Now, instead of catching the train, you're in a fire drill. The seemingly innocuous yet loaded question, what's going on with the project, instantly creates panic. And now you've got to gather the troops, find out who holds the ball on the project. It's the end of the week. No one really knows where things are. The group's been busy enough doing the actual project work, but now you've got a client throwing a status grenade in the mix. And so everybody goes scrambling in all directions to find all the right information. The result is a collective loss of hours of productivity. This could and should be so much easier. And fortunately, as we're about to discuss, with the right tools, it is. Just as a final quick note, watch out for the overshare. Teams panic sometimes, and then they find everything they can and they throw the kitchen sink to the client. In many cases, the clients really just want to know that there's progress. It could just be a simple who, what, where of the project. And there's more than a few software applications that will do just this. If you're in the legal world, I can think of 3 right now that with a click can get you the status you need. In no particular order, some of my favorites are Lawmatics, Proxy, Smokeball, and Practice Panther. In the interest of full disclosure, I do not get anything from these companies, but I do use Lawmatics in my own law firm. So let's take a quick look at the why of why project management tools are helpful. These tools, which include both software and methods, help the flow of communication by shifting the way teams talk to each other. They also reduce the occurrence, recurrence, and frequency of mistakes and help teams work faster by creating step-by-step ways of doing things that can be used again and again. So as we've previously talked about in other webinars, we have something that's transparent, standardized, and repeatable, created through project management tools. Used the right way, tools can turn the stressful status question into a much smoother and more organized process that only takes a couple clicks. This calms the chaos and helps people respond to the question more efficiently and effectively. Again, while most of our focus is on smaller size law firms, in reality, this discussion is just as applicable to small companies regardless of their industry. What was once solely available to large companies through million-dollar engagements with Deloitte and KPMG are now available in more appropriate scale to smaller firms who can get their hands on project management tools. And beyond being more approximately accessible, they are also practically more accessible by being easier to use with enhanced user experience and customized training. So even if you're with a smaller firm, you can still benefit from the tools available to the big firms. Remember, as always, I'm going to caution you that these are not magic beans, and they won't instantly solve everything. They work best when they're set up and used in the right way. So while these tools can do amazing things, they need your help to make them work just right. And it can be a case of garbage in and garbage out, which is one of the big reasons why we're talking about cleaning your house today, to prevent just that. So now we get sort of the meat of what we're talking about. And because I love analogies, think of it like building a house. Before you add all of your fancy live, laugh, love stencils in the kitchen, you need to make sure that the structure is not going to collapse. And hence our picture of poor Rod Flanders pulling the load-bearing poster off the wall. That foundation was not strong. Similarly, when you bring in project management tools, it's important to first tackle any existing issues and create a solid base for those tools to work effectively. So What are we talking about today? 3 key areas that you need to address before you can implement. First, buy-in. We'll talk about this more in a minute, but find the people who will kill your project. Your naysayers, the corporate influencers, the admin staff. Get them on board and you'll be smoother sailing. Conversely, just let something happen to them and they will kill your implementation. Data collection. You need to know where you are and how your company is running before you can start to implement tools. This comes in 3 key areas: time, people, and tech. And we'll talk about those in just a minute. Finally, we'll talk in greater depth in just a moment, but you should have regular audits no matter what. But the audits we're talking about go beyond the simple accounting compliance. This is a chance to analyze the statements and see the picture the numbers are showing you. This is key to data-driven decision-making, which is really key to everything we're talking about here. So before rolling out your new tools or ideas, it's super important to get agreement from different parts of the firm, especially people who are actually the ones running it, growing the business, and inside the day-to-day. This is more than making sure that the people who are in charge are on board. In fact, do not cater to the people in charge. In fact, in most cases, those in charge will usually be fairly quick to fall in line once the rest of the organization is up and running. You usually don't want your top tier of leadership being your early adopters. That said, you sometimes will need some form of leader sponsorship, but that's outside the scope of what we're talking about here. Who you do want to talk to and care about are the administrators, the chief paralegals, the office managers, the head admin. Those are the people that can make or break a project. And it's important to involve the administrators and those operations experts who can help with the business side of the firm. One, because they're usually the ones who are stuck with the implementation of these projects. They can also offer some really helpful and practical ideas. They're also the ones that can kill a project very quickly or make implementation really difficult to the point of not wanting to do it. So you do want to make sure that they are thoughtfully involved and that things are not just happening to the administrators and the operations groups. You want to make sure that you are working better and faster, and this involves making sure each task goes to the right person, using the right tools at the right time, internally and externally. And why are these under the label of carrot? This is the time for these key team members to have a say about the implementation of these project management tools. This is where you can learn what incents them. How can you build a PM strategy to reflect this? When people feel they have a say in how something is built, they do take greater pride in it. They feel ownership. Now onto the stick, and that's the other side of buy-in. This is usually related to attorneys who can, put it mildly, be difficult to change. And even though we're talking about attorneys, it is applicable to all sorts of leadership, but particularly those who are stubbornly set in their ways. Not that any of us have ever seen that in an organization. One of the first steps to hit everybody is in the economics. Lawyers and many managers may not understand pure numbers, but they do understand money that's on their P&L. They understand money that they're making. Put another way, the economic realities can counter resistance to change. In the case of law firms, clients are increasingly influencing legal spend and technology choices. As a result, firms need to find efficient ways to address this efficiency. One of the other drivers that clients have been pushing for are alternative fee arrangements, or at least minimally a predictability in pricing. These client incentives are pushing firms to rethink their approach. As a note, anytime that you're shifting your billing structure or your P&L, any of that reporting, you simultaneously also want to shift your internal reporting and your KPIs. If you're moving to a flat fee, for example, at a law firm, have you also adjusted the accounting you take for the administrative burden? Are you assigning work to the most efficient and cost-effective individuals? Now you need to analyze how much each step on your process map is costing you. How much time is each person taking? What's their effective rate? Things like this. That's the data that we need to look at, and we're going to touch on that in just a moment. Secondly, we also want to take a look at the marketplace realities. The realities that, again, looking at lawyers need to see that the legal world is changing, and that change pushes them to work better internally and externally. You'd think it would be an easier lift than it is. After all, lawyers have been begging for years to be able to do more strategic work. And using project management tools does take a step to match these shifts in the marketplace and allow lawyers to work more efficiently or more strategically. But still, it is a real push to get them to work that way. Basically, this falls under the heading of stick because the marketplace is saying adapt or die. And I think that's true with a lot of organizations. Just very quickly, two other quick issues to note in terms of getting buy-in. One, identify your influencers. This is more than just a repeat of keying on the admin folks like we talked about a few minutes ago. You need to find the ones who are going to kill your project or be hypercritical of it. Get them involved at the beginning. Let them tucker themselves out finding fault and nitpicking with you one-on-one early on when you're able to make changes and not have it broadcast to the whole team. This basically gives them the forum early and also lets them feel ownership. And so you're working with them in two directions here. One, you're making sure that you're not poisoning the well for other team members. Two, you're also gaining that valuable assistance. And with their help, new ideas can catch on and make things better for everyone. And when we get these tough situations that are popping up or things are starting to slide, it's really easy to retreat to old ways. We mentioned firms moving to flat fees a little bit ago. This is similar to a firm saying, well, this isn't working anymore, so I'm going to go back to hourly billing because I can't get the right metrics. So not the smartest move. Instead, what firms should do is take a breath, collect the info, and think about what's really happening in the market before making those big choices. Data-driven decision-making will help you figure out the best path forward instead of just reacting quickly. And we're going to talk in a minute about assembling that data. But first, a couple of examples of some ways that buy-in has really benefited some organizations. Not ironically, but most of these are going to be tech organizations that you see. Google has a 20% policy. In most cases, this is still in place, where employees get to spend 20% of their work hours on personal or passion projects. With this, Google aimed to instill ownership and commitment among employees towards their projects. This opportunity not only allowed individuals to explore their own ideas, but also contributed to a culture where employees felt invested in the company's success. Similarly, Apple includes key team members when they're creating and testing new products before the official launch. It's not just about making the product better, it's also about making sure employees are enthusiastic and on the same page as the company's objectives. If they're part of the product journey, Apple helps to ensure that employees' insights and perspectives contribute to make that product the best it can be. And they're also cultivating a sense of pride and unity among employees as they watch their ideas and efforts turn into actual products or features of products. Microsoft's One Microsoft strategy. This is one of those watershed sort of business school textbook cases of a strategy that went well. This was about 10 years ago, and Microsoft had the goal to streamline, tear down silos, and really inspire everyone to work together. To make this strategy work, Microsoft needed all employees on board, not a small task, but from top to bottom. Microsoft implemented a very simple One Microsoft mantra, which became pervasive and a leading example of using simple methods to get even skeptical team members on board. What worked here was the clarity and simplicity of the strategy, the communication, and the sense of ownership that was given to employees throughout the strategy. Finally, Tesla. And setting aside any feelings of Elon Musk, Tesla does run its gigafactories, the huge, enormous factories where they make their vehicles and their batteries. They get lots of people involved in these factories, and they listen to their people. They empower them. They hear their thoughts and ideas right from the start and implement them during the planning and design phases. This way, the company can make sure it's using everyone's collective knowledge. So in each of these cases, the companies understood how crucial it was to get approval and support from important employees before starting big projects. And important, again, not in the sense of they're important leaders by title, but important leaders in the sense of they are influential to those around them. And this doesn't just help the project succeed, but it also enhances morale, engagement, and alignment with company goals. So we mentioned data-driven decision-making being the clearest way to ensure clear-headed decisions. But what data is really important? And we're going to be talking about your most precious resources, your time, your people, your tech, and to some degree too, your finances. That's sort of a separate side category. One of the things about how we use time is that we tend to be biased in how we think we spend our time. As mentioned earlier, we tend to overestimate the amount of time we actually dedicate to difficult tasks, and we tend to underestimate the amount of time we actually spend on rote tasks. Cold data clears up this bias, but what's one of the best ways to actually get data on how we spend our time? The always fun calendar audits. Calendar audits are one of the most straightforward methods to assess each person's individual productivity. If you're at a larger company or firm, this data is most likely already available, especially if you are in a timekeeping position. It's just as simple as running some reports. If you're not at one of those larger firms or you're not in a timekeeping position, generating a calendar audit is a simple enough process, particularly with the advent of a lot of AI solutions, including a lot of tools that are embedded within Outlook. And happy to talk about those offline if you want. Feel free to send me an email and we can chat about that. But these really do require reliable entry and tracking of time on the front end. Otherwise, you end up with garbage in, garbage out. So even absent AI tools, these audits are not difficult to create. But if you do have a manual calendar system, audits can be a little more cumbersome and time consuming. And if you are not in a timekeeping position or you don't regularly track your time, do yourself a favor and track how you're spending time for about a month. Gather some data on how you're doing it. And I mean, really track it, like be honest with yourself. I think you'll be pretty surprised at some of the results. So at a high level, really what you need to do is just collate your calendar entries for all of the time you're spending on productive matters, administrative matters, personal matters throughout your workday. Look at the amount of time you're actually spending in these categories and phases of projects. Compare that to what you think you're spending on these tasks and time, and decide where too much of this time may be getting spent. When we do have that cold data about how we spend our time every day, we can start to change how we spend that time. Whether you use time blocking or other methods, it's imperative that you take control over your available time. I am a big fan of time blocking, but I had to modify it to work for me and the way that I work. I like to get deep into tasks, so I had to build in blocks of concentrated time every day where I can work on a task solely, alone. That's it. I block everything else out. This requires some discipline and it requires turning off notifications, but in the end, it's very worthwhile. How we use that time might not match how we think that we've been doing it. So checking those calendars, really good tool. Next step up is our people. Your people are your firm's most valuable resource. And optimizing your firm means assigning tasks to your people in a logical and efficient manner. In order to know who should do what by when, the firm should conduct a thorough assessment of each person's skills, expertise, and desire. The data collection here is a bit softer than with a calendar audit, and it really starts with talking to each individual, learning what they view as their strengths and weaknesses. What do they want to do? What do they think they're good at? What are they masters of? Is there anything that they're afraid of breaking? Follow that up by talking to their coworkers and your own experience to confirm their views. Do these match up? Do they align? Is their viewpoint somehow skewed? Are they not as important as they think? Are they more important than they think? Compare these interviews with information from HR to the extent it is legal and applicable and ethical. But if you have accessibility to non-performance data, it is always helpful to kind of check in on that and make sure that we're not missing things. So taking these views and aligning them with the tasks that need to be done really helps make sure that we are looking at what needs to be completed and giving it to the most logical person. So we're allocating tasks in a way that maximizes the possibility for each team member to contribute in a way that matches their talents and their abilities to operate efficiently. This is really different than standard review processes or a 360 review. This is about aligning jobs to be done. Now, a lot of firm leaders and senior people within the firm should be aware of and find those go-to people in the various areas so that they can delegate tasks appropriately with consideration of workload, of course. And where possible, outsource your non-core functions, administrative tasks, compliance, research to external professionals or other departments to the extent you can. This does allow you to focus on your core aspects of your work. Finally, your tech stack. All too often, firms have bought into the latest tech solution thinking it's a panacea. And when one doesn't work, they add on another, and then they add on another, and then they add on another. And then they've got this unwieldy tech stack, and no one knows what one thing does, and they're all not talking to each other. So while there are numerous wonderful tech solutions that can strongly augment project management, many firms will commit without clear purpose and goals, and they end up buying to solve one problem and wind up creating 3 new ones. So before bringing on any new tech, get focused on your purpose and audit what you currently have in-house. Is there an existing solution in place that will do the thing you need done? Some firms have locked into a year-long agreement, then later discovered that an Excel macro could have done the same thing with less problems. The importance of this is to recognize the tools you have and identify what your users need, what problems they're having, and look at it collectively and individually. The right solutions will solve many problems, but outside of truly custom-built solutions, you're likely never going to solve all of your problems. So find the most effective solution for your situation. And before bringing on anything new, make sure you and your end users are clear about the functionality and how it will help you. Know what problem it will solve and how it will solve it. The net effect of the tech audit should reveal where your gaps need to be filled and what your true needs are from a tech perspective. Now, everyone knows I love examples, so here is a real quick example where all of the data assembly just failed spectacularly. Many of you remember about 10 years ago, Target experienced a major data breach that exposed sensitive information of 40 million customers. And I think this was just before the shopping holidays started too. Boiling it down in the simplest terms, the audit of this breach discovered that it was caused by misaligned technology, security, and personnel practices. Essentially, boiling it down even further, the wrong people doing the wrong things at the wrong times. Subsequent audits also highlighted, they had really weak network segmentation, which allowed attackers to move from vendor access points to customer data storage. They had security systems and personnel in place to detect unusual activity, and they in fact did detect unusual activity, but they just let it pass. They had in many places the wrong software driven by the wrong people at the wrong time, sensing a pattern. With the vendor access, entry was gained through unsecured third-party vendors, pointing to a misalignment in the vendor access security. And although anti-malware software did flag the breaches malware, the presence of it, the alerts were ignored due to poor monitoring practices. This case illustrates the critical role of auditing your people, your activities, and your tech, and updating it regularly. This will reduce your likelihood of misaligned technology and people that could prevent catastrophe. And I know this is kind of an extreme example, but it really does apply to project management implementation as well. You want to head off any difficulties that there could be. On the plus side for Target, once the breach was discovered, they did become a rather good example of standard processes and brand rehabilitation in the face of a catastrophe. Now, financial audits. This is the third primary area where you want to address your money. And while you should already have an audit function in place as part of your accounting or regulatory requirements, the audit you want to run here is focused on where your money is going. What buckets are getting the most? What investments are available? From a compliance perspective, regular audits, they'll uncover discrepancies or errors and allow them to be promptly rectified. From a project management perspective, auditing provides firm leadership with valuable insights into their financial position and performance. By analyzing audited financial statements, you can make informed and strategic business decisions. Audits shed light on areas that require improvement and identify opportunities for growth. Before implementing any project management tools, you should look beyond the usual audit function. Align your cash flow and pipeline with your process improvement plans. All of this should be tied to your firm's short and long-term goals. No discussion of auditing would be complete without mentioning Enron. I don't need to say too much about Enron. They are a cautionary tale for auditing. The aftermath following their implosion in the early 2000s also took out a top 4 auditing firm. So in part, this example is here to remind us about the role that we have as leaders in questioning what we don't understand and also verifying new methods and verifying that they work and that they're ethical. In the Enron case, they essentially made up new accounting methods that when the cracks started to show, everyone realized that the entire house was built on fraud. Their audits failed to show conflicts of interest with its auditor, Arthur Andersen, a lack of transparency in financial statements, and a failure to detect fraudulent activities. The financial statements were so complex and difficult to understand, one, because they were using intricate but also sometimes phony accounting methods. They like to call them cutting edge, but in reality, they were completely against everything GAAP at the time. This complexity really made it hard for investors or experts to even assess the true health of the company. Andersen's role in this thing. Despite the responsibility as an auditor, Andersen was complicit and failed to detect or raise concerns about Enron's fraudulent activities, and all the deceptive practices went on undetected. Andersen's auditors should have been a little more skeptical. They should have asked the questions. What are you doing? What does this mean? Why are you doing it this way? Where did your profits come from? And so the tie-in here, well, first, we all know what happened with Enron. All this activity led to the largest corporate bankruptcy in U.S. history at the time. Thousands of people lost their job and several people went to jail. But why do we care about this from a project management perspective? First, all project managers need to make sure that they are trusting but verifying. Second, from a financial perspective, know how your money is getting to you. This is why the audit function from a PM standpoint is useful. You can follow the trends, know where money is going and where it is coming from. Recommend responsible allocations to your project and protect your ground. Also, as a corporate steward or as whatever role you have, it's also important to ask those questions. If you see something in financial statements that you don't understand or doesn't make any sense, ask the questions. Because I think if more people have been asking questions in Enron's case, who knows? Wrapping up here. First, again, since we are focused in the legal world, think of all your legal work as projects. And this applies to not just legal stuff. This applies to business tasks. By using the project management tools and applying them to every project you have at work and considering it a project, you can do things faster, better. And having that set of tools is also going to help you handle other parts of the business too, and they're going to help you do it more efficiently. Achieving good results and making processes work better depends on doing things right. If you bring in tools without getting ready, they're not going to play well with the things you're already doing. So before making changes, prepare well to increase the chance of your success. Again, everybody knows how much I love analogies. Just as you would tidy up your house before bringing in new furniture or redecorating, it's really important to get your current workflows and processes in order before you're introducing project management tools. This helps ensure everything works smoothly and efficiently. This way, the tools can fit in seamlessly and enhance your work. Well-prepared workflows set the stage for effective project management tools. That's why you need all that data going in. And as we talked about, getting the buy-in and the data collection, getting the team and important people on your side, getting the right information are those critical first steps. You need team support. You need the data to make the right decisions. It's all about setting things up the right way from the beginning. Taking some time at the beginning to plan and get ready saves you from rushing at the end and keeps things running smoothly. This way, you can avoid feeling stressed when people ask for updates on how things are going. The next time you get that Friday afternoon email, you can say, hang on just a second, click, click, click. Oh yeah, here's the who, what, when, and where of that project. Any questions? Thank you. So this preparation really does help prevent all those worried feelings and that anxiety that comes from those sudden requests for updates. So with that, I know we are at the 30-minute mark and just a couple seconds over it. But I know that if you do need to drop, I want to thank you for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. If you have a couple minutes and want to stick around and have some questions, we'll hang out here for a few minutes as well. Otherwise, appreciate everyone's time and appreciate your support. Thank you very much.